देख सकते हैं कि हम लैंडर मॉड्यूल
People are applauding. Let
लैंडर
us all
मॉड्यूल
wait to hear from the Secretary Department of Space and Chairman ISRO, Shri S. Somnath.
This is my video update from Nicosia, Cyprus on this Thursday morning, August 24th. Let's talk about some news. Why are the motorcycles so loud in Cyprus? I don't know. But let's talk about the big story, which is the Prigozhin plane crash. The alleged Prigozhin plane crash, because as of the time of this recording, morning time in Cyprus, we still have not had an official statement from the Russian government confirming that Prigozhin and other Wagner officials were on this plane that crashed in between Moscow and St. Petersburg in the Tver region. Actually, there were two private planes belonging to Prigozhin that were traveling in between Moscow and St. Petersburg. The one plane that crashed was the plane where Prigozhin's name was on the passenger list, as well as other Wagner officials. The second plane actually turned around and returned back to Moscow. But the one plane that crashed was the plane where Prigozhin's name was on the manifest, as well as other Wagner officials. Basically, the command of Wagner was on the plane. At least their names were on the manifest of the plane that crashed. And so we don't have an official statement yet, but it is widely believed that on this plane was Prigozhin and the other Wagner officials. There are reports that the investigators of the crash have actually found Prigozhin's mobile phone at the scene of the crash as well. But all of this has not been confirmed by the Russian government as of the time of this recording. Maybe when this recording goes up, we will have official confirmation, official statements from the Russian government that Prigozhin and other Wagner officials, as well as pilots, I believe 3 pilots, were on this plane that crashed. I believe the total number of people on the manifest, on the passenger list, was, I believe, 8 or 9 people were on this private plane. Anyway, a lot of speculation as to what brought this plane down and why was this plane brought down. Could it have been an accident? Yes, it could have been an accident. Was it a bomb that brought this plane down? Was it some sort of a missile, a surface-to-air missile? We don't know. We don't know, and I don't know. Anything that I'm going to say from this point forward on my end is just speculation. Why was this plane brought down? If this wasn't an accident, who could have been behind this plane crash? And why did they bring this plane down? Obviously, Prigozhin was involved in a lot of things, and while at times, from certain parts of society, he was considered a hero, he was also considered an enemy and a traitor as well, and he had a lot of enemies. So I think it's important to say that. So he was considered a hero, but he also made a lot of enemies in a lot of powerful places, a lot of powerful positions. So could it have been? Nothing should be ruled out. First of all, we can't rule anything out, and an investigation is going to be carried out. But are we going to really know who was behind this crash, this sabotage? If it wasn't an accident, probably not. We're going to probably never know the real truth as to what happened if this wasn't an accident. And even if this is ruled an accident, I imagine most people are not going to believe this plane crash was an accident. But, I've got some organizations, some organizations who could have been behind this plane crash if it wasn't an accident. And I'll just throw some names out there, and I'm probably missing some possibilities as well. But my first thoughts are CIA. The CIA has done this before, so that's a possibility. This is nothing new to them. And one of the reasons that they could have been behind this crash is, I don't know, maybe Prigozhin knew things about the coup or the mutiny that they wanted silenced. Maybe this is connected to Prigozhin's activities in Africa. Things in Africa are very tense right now. We've talked about the situation in Niger, but Wagner and Prigozhin were very active in Africa. And just a couple of days ago, there was a video released by Prigozhin, or at least which shows Prigozhin allegedly in Africa, though there are rumors that this video was not filmed in Africa, or that this video was filmed a few months ago, where Prigozhin was in Africa and it was being released now. Which, if that is the case, that's pretty interesting. But maybe it was the CIA. Maybe it was Russian intel. Maybe it was the Russian government. Maybe it was the FSB. You can't rule that out as well. There are a lot of analysts who claim that this is Putin's way of, or the Russian government's way of tying up some loose ends following the attempted mutiny and the attempted coup from Wagner, from some of Wagner, and from Prigozhin. So that can't be ruled out, even though I do have to say that this doesn't seem like the method that Putin or the Russian government would use to remove Prigozhin. I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. But you can't rule it out. You cannot rule it out. The one thing's for sure. Let me say this. One thing's for sure. The Collective West media, and the leadership of the Collective West, they already know who did this. They knew who did this, a minute after the plane crashed. They're going to blame this on Putin. They're going to say Putin did it. They're going to say Putin's a thug. Putin's a dictator. Actually, Nikki Haley, in the Republican debates yesterday evening, she said that Putin killed Prigozhin. She said it in the debates yesterday. So, I think Biden hinted at this as well when he was asked about this while he was on holiday. I believe his 377th day on holiday since he's been president. I believe he's vacationing in Lake Tahoe as he was eating an ice cream. He was asked about this, and he hinted at the fact that Putin, the dictator thug, did it. So, for me, the fact, let me just say this. I don't rule out the Russian government. I don't rule out anybody, but who am I? I'm just some guy in Cyprus at the moment, making a video on my mobile phone. But, let me say this. The fact that 5 minutes after this accident happened and the entire Collective West media and the leadership was running the story that Putin did this, to me, leads me to believe that the Russian government would not remove Prigozhin in such a way. Was Prigozhin a problem for the Russian government? Yes, he was a problem. He was let's just say he was a loose cannon, to say it in a very diplomatic way. But it's my belief that the Russian government reached an understanding after the coup, after the attempted coup and mutiny. Let this guy just do his thing for a year or two. Let us first deal with Ukraine, and then we'll figure out how to deal with Prigozhin. We've marginalized him. Let him do his thing in Africa. Let's integrate Wagner into the military. let's move much of Wagner into Belarus, and the other Wagner contractors, let's send them to Africa, and we'll deal with Prigozhin in a couple of years when the whole Ukraine thing settles down. What we're doing in Ukraine is wrapped up, then we'll deal with Prigozhin. That was my thinking, and I'll stick by that analysis. So I don't rule out the fact that the Russian government may be tying up loose ends, but this doesn't seem like the move of the Russian government or something that Putin would do. That's just my hunch, and the fact that the collective West is saying that Putin did it, to me, leads me to believe that Putin and the Russian government didn't do it. So that's just my take on things. The only question mark that I have is the timing of all of this, because a couple of days ago, there were reports that Surovikin was dismissed. There are other reports claiming that Surovikin has been given a new command. There has not been an official statement from the Russian government or from the Russian Ministry of Defense as to what is happening with Surovikin. But there are rumors that Surovikin was involved with Prigozhin and Wagner and the attempted mutiny in one form or another, but the fact that this happened a couple days after the rumors came out about Surovikin's dismissal, which isn't official yet, we still don't know what is going on, that's an interesting development. You also had Putin traveling to Rostov and meeting with Gerasimov, and the other day, this happened a couple of days ago, and the details of the meeting are not quite known. That's interesting as well, but I'll still lean towards the hunch that I have, which is that this doesn't seem like a move that the Russian government would make. But once again, I don't rule anybody or any three-letter agency or government or anything out at this moment in time. So, so the CIA, a possibility. The Russian government, a possibility. Ukraine SBU, a possibility. Absolutely. You had Budanov, the AI Android version of the SBU Intel chief. The motorcycles here in Cyprus are like the loudest in the world. I don't know. I don't get it. But anyway, Budanov came out with a statement 24 hours before this accident happened, before this crash happened, saying that there's going to be more terrorist activity against Russia. Did Budanov know something? Budanov did say it would be directed at Crimea, to be fair. But did Budanov know something? Did SBU know something? Was SBU behind this? Is the Russian government going to pin this on Ukraine and the SBU? It's a possibility. I mean, what does the SBU gain from this? What does Ukraine gain from this? Cui bono? Well, this is a day before Ukraine Independence Day celebration. So this would be a big talking point for the Zelensky regime and for the SBU. This would be a nice boost for morale for the Ukraine military. So I could see the SBU being behind this, or maybe the SBU with the help of NATO or Western Intel. That's a possibility. Remember Nord Stream. What's the narrative with Nord Stream that no one talks about anymore? The narrative, according to the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, the Financial Times, the narrative is that Ukraine was behind the blowing up of the Nord Stream pipeline. So if they could blow up, according to Collective West Media, if they could orchestrate Nord Stream, they could definitely orchestrate the crash of Prigozhin's, the alleged crash of Prigozhin's private plane. That's a possibility. We shouldn't count that out. So it could be a combination of SBU, CIA, NATO, Collective West Intel. Who knows? They definitely have a motivation to bring down the plane of Prigozhin. So there's SBU. This could be oligarchs that perhaps Prigozhin pissed off. Maybe the oligarchs that were behind. Maybe the oligarchs that were sponsoring the mutiny or the coup from Prigozhin. Maybe they're the ones that want to cover their tracks and brought down this plane. And finally, maybe this was an internal dispute inside of Wagner. Maybe this was some sort of power struggle or power grab. I don't know. I think that's a pretty exhaustive list of possibilities. Maybe I missed something. There are rumors. There are some analysts saying that this is a way for Prigozhin to fake his death. I mean, that's a long shot, but why not? We can't rule anything out. And once again, this could have been an accident. I've heard some analysts claiming that maybe this was an accident and a surface-to-air missile brought this down accidentally, brought this plane down. That's a possibility. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments down below. Did I cover all the possibilities? Did I miss something? Which possibility do you think is most likely? Once again, I have no idea what happened. We still don't have an official statement from the Russian government. There's an investigation that is taking place. We still don't have official confirmation that Prigozhin and Wagner command was indeed on this plane and they have indeed died. So just keep that in mind. Everything that I'm saying is just complete speculation. But the collective West, they're already saying this is 100%. They're already saying Putin did this. 100% they're going to blame this on Russia and on Putin. That's a given. So that right there should tell you who was probably not behind this. Always believe the opposite of what the collective West media and what the leaders of the collective West tell you as a rule of thumb. Anyway, let's move on now. I mentioned Nikki Haley saying that Prigozhin was killed by Putin. Nikki Haley, she is the worst of the worst, isn't she? She also claimed that the one-time ambassador to the UN, gosh, I forgot his name. He died like 4 or 5 years ago, when Nikki Haley was also ambassador to the UN at the time, but I forgot his name. He was a fantastic ambassador, and he died, I believe, because of health reasons. That was the cause of his death, though things were a little bit suspicious there as well. But Nikki Haley, she is the worst of the worst. During the debate, she actually threw out there that the Russian government killed the ambassador. She hinted at that. She is the worst of the worst. And boy, did she get crushed by Vivek during the debates. Actually, Vivek told her to, what did he say? Go back to your bosses at Lockheed Martin and Raytheon. That was a good one from Vivek. He came out the best from the Republican debate, I think. He made the best showing, though he was playing it up. I think he understood that Trump wasn't there, so he positioned himself as the candidate that could tell the truth about what's really going on in the world, like what's really happening right now. And he was poking a lot of fun at the other candidates, basically positioning them as bought-off puppets from the deep state and the military-industrial complex, bought-off politicians. And he did a good job at the debates of positioning himself as the outsider, and everyone else was just a bought-off politician. So I think Vivek came out the best from the debates. DeSantis, he kind of broke even. He didn't really say much. It didn't really make an impact. I think he played it safe. Everyone else was a train wreck. Christie was a train wreck. He's a buffoon. Pence is a buffoon. Nikki Haley is a buffoon. Everyone else, who even cares about the other people that were at the debates? Fox News, they gave most of the talking time to Christie, Pence, and Haley. So that shows you who Fox News would like to have win the Republican nomination. But I think Vivek came out the best. I think Christie, Haley, and Pence came out the worst. But when it comes to foreign policy and the questions about China and Ukraine, Christie, Haley, and Pence are out of their freaking minds, out of their minds. They know nothing. They're foreign policy idiots. They really are foreign policy idiots. Christie was like when he was asked about Ukraine, he's like, everyone in this auditorium, imagine every seat here being a child that has gone missing or something like that, and that is what evil Putin has done. And Nikki Haley was talking about Putin the thug, and Pence was talking about Putin the thug, and what was the line that they were all throwing out there? The Reagan line, peace through strength. That was the line that they were all throwing out there. So their thinking was that Ukraine has to fight Russia so that U.S. troops don't have to fight Russia, right? So that was their scripted line. That was their scripted talking point. They're idiots. They were idiots. Watch the debates. You'll see that Nikki Haley, Chris Christie, and Mike Pence are foreign policy knuckleheads. They really are foreign policy clowns. They're completely ignorant as to what's going on in the world. I honestly believe that. I believe that they're absolutely ignorant about what is going on in the world. I actually believe that if you had a map and asked Nikki Haley, Christie, and Pence to point Ukraine out on a map, they wouldn't be able to tell you where it is. I bet you they have no idea what the Minsk agreements are. I bet you they have no idea as to the complexities of this conflict. They're complete knuckleheads. They really, really are. I was left in shock that these are actual people that are thinking about becoming president of the United States because they're that ignorant about foreign affairs. But look, Vivek, I think he came out the best, though I wasn't impressed with anybody, nor was I expecting to be impressed with anybody. I think Vivek is positioning himself for vice president or some sort of seat in some sort of position in Trump's cabinet should Trump win. But that was a debate. That was Fox News. Fox News, obviously, they want Christie, Pence, and Haley to win the nomination, and they gave them the most talk time. So that was the Republican debates, which were overshadowed by Trump's interview with Tucker Carlson on Twitter, which, as of the time of this recording, has 100 million views. That doesn't mean that 100 million people have seen Trump's interview with Tucker. It just means that 100 million views have shown up on Twitter timelines of this interview from Tucker Carlson. If you say maybe 15 or 20% of the timeline appearances of this interview were actually viewed, like actually watched by Twitter users, well, then you get to say maybe 15 million to 20 million people actually viewed this interview from Tucker Carlson of Trump. So that's huge. The interview with Trump and Tucker Carlson that crushed Fox News is GOP presidential debate coverage. So Trump did the right thing by not showing up at these debates. I think if he showed up, I think the crowd was kind of chosen by Fox News to be very supportive of, say, Haley and Pence, though they did boo Christie. I think the crowd was picked to be very, very Haley and Pence oriented. So I think if Trump was there, the crowd would have been very hostile to Trump. I'm positive that Brett Baier and Martha McCallum, who were moderating the debate, they would have been very hostile to Trump. So I think that Trump avoided a trap by going to this Fox News debate. And why go? I think he made the right decision. Why show up at this debates? Because most of the people on the stage are a bunch of clowns. So why associate yourself with clowns? Why associate yourself with Haley, Pence, and Christie? Even though Pence was your vice president and Haley was your ambassador to the UN, why Trump appointed them, I don't know, because they're idiots. But he appointed them. He gave them positions in his administration. But at this moment in time, why associate yourself with clowns? So he made the right move by not showing up at this debate. And there was an interesting interview. I don't think there was anything said at this interview that was groundbreaking either. But it was a good interview. And Trump said all the right things. And when he when he was required to not say something like about the indictments or something about his legal case, he kept his mouth pretty much shut. Even the questioning about Epstein, Trump was kind of trying to avoid answering the question directly from Tucker Carlson, whether Trump believed Epstein killed himself. Trump was like, well, I think he killed himself, but maybe he didn't, and he was kind of avoiding answering the question anyway. Anyway, that's okay. Those were the three big news items. There's still more news to talk about. Let's see how I'm doing on time. Okay, I've got 10 more minutes to discuss things. Other news going on in the world, and Zelensky was visited by the leaders of Finland, Portugal, and Lithuania yesterday, and they're going to attend the Independence Day celebrations of Ukraine. So they paid a visit to the Zelensky regime, and there was a press conference, and Zelensky was asked questions about the big counteroffensive and the failure of the big counteroffensive that everyone in the world now acknowledges has been a complete debacle, a complete catastrophe for the Zelensky regime. And even Zelensky himself admitted to the media yesterday, Aman, noise pollution. Even Zelensky, even he admitted that the big counteroffensive is very difficult. Those are the words that he chose. Very, very difficult. But Zelensky said that the Ukraine military is making progress. Here's what he told the media during a press conference yesterday. We can see in which directions we are moving forward. It's very difficult for us because there is heavy mining, thousands of mines, the Ukraine leader said during a press conference on Wednesday when asked about the armed campaign against Russia. Nevertheless, the Ukrainian leader, speaking alongside visiting Finnish Prime Minister Petteri Orpo in Kiev, insisted that judging by reports from the military, we are gradually moving forward, slowly, but in the right direction. This is Zelensky's way of saying that Ukraine is losing and has lost, and the big counteroffensive is a complete failure. We're moving very, very slowly, but in the right direction. Really? Are you really moving in the right direction? And this slow movement in the right direction is coming at what cost? That's the follow-up question that the media should have asked Zelensky. At what cost is this very slow movement coming at? 40, 50, 60, 70,000 Ukraine military lives in order to gain what? An empty village here or there in the security zone, in the gray zone. So that was Zelensky's best effort at covering up the big counteroffensive disaster. And Zelensky also admitted to the media in Ukraine that he now is being pressed by various forces in Ukraine to mobilize more troops. He said, to be frank, the military turned me to give me the opportunity to mobilize more. In other words, Zelensky is telling the media that he is being pressured by the military, probably by the Western Ukraine Banderites, probably by the neocons, by Nuland, by Sullivan, by Blinken, to mobilize anyone and everyone that he can. Remember that Welt article that came out a couple of days ago, which called for the mobilization of 3 million Ukrainian men to continue to fight this conflict. So Zelensky, he admitted yesterday that he is being pressured to mobilize. That is a big revelation. Now, if you're being pressured to mobilize, what does that tell you? That tells you that things are going very, very bad for Ukraine. You're being pressured to mobilize when you're allegedly on the offensive. You're not on the defensive, you're on the offensive, and you're gaining no ground. You're losing tens of thousands of troops. This is a disaster for Ukraine. Even the Telegraph, they put out an article yesterday with the title. This is the UK Telegraph, which is super pro-Zelensky. They put out an article with the title, Ukraine's army is running out of men to recruit and time to win. That is coming from the Telegraph. That's huge. This is the Telegraph admitting that Ukraine has lost. This is their way of admitting that Ukraine has lost. And let me read you a sentence from the Telegraph, which I believe sums up the article. Now, in the article, the Telegraph talks about how Russia's suffering losses and Putin's in trouble. The Russian military is in tatters. Putin is in tatters. Blah blah blah. Right? So they have to always qualify their admissions of truth. The siege of Kiev was a failure. They always go back to the siege of Kiev. That's their security blanket, right? That's their safe space. The siege of Kiev. But anyway, the bottom line is that the Telegraph is admitting that Ukraine has lost. This is the one sentence and the one paragraph that I believe sums it all up. Here's the one sentence from this article. It's brutal. It's a brutal but simple calculation. Kiev is running out of men. That's like in the middle of the Telegraph article. It's a brutal but simple calculation. Kiev is running out of men. Then the article says volunteers are no longer coming forward in numbers sufficient to keep the army at fighting strength. Those most willing to fight signed up years ago. The latest recruitment slogan is, and I quote, "It's okay to be afraid, but there are still many attempting to dodge being drafted to fight on the front lines." The recruitment slogan from Ukraine is, and I quote, "It's okay to be afraid." This is the Telegraph writing this, the UK Telegraph. It says it all. That gives you to date, the most accurate picture from collective West media as to the situation happening in Ukraine at this moment. And Zelensky, what he needs to do, what the collective West needs to do, what the Zelensky government needs to do, what the European Union needs to force Zelensky to do is to capitulate, is to negotiate with Russia and admit that this war is over, that Ukraine has lost. That is what Zelensky needs to do. That is what the collective West needs to tell Zelensky to do. But they won't, and they can't, and they're going to continue to fight this war, and most likely what we're going to see is an attempt for a huge, massive mobilization. That is what we're most likely going to see, and it's not going to work out. It's not going to work. A mobilization at this type of scale is going to fail. And I imagine that if Zelensky does this, and this is probably what he's thinking, if he actually succumbs to pressure and puts forward a huge mobilization, I imagine he's afraid that his power is going to collapse, and his government's going to collapse. That's what he's trying to figure out right now. How do I stay in power, and how do I mobilize these 3 million men as I'm being ordered to do by the neocons, by various government military officials in Ukraine, by the Banderites? How do I pull this off? How do I mobilize 3 million people and stay in power? That's probably what Zelensky's trying to figure out. So Forbes, they put out an article. David Axe, who's writing a lot these days about the conflict in Ukraine for Forbes, he put out an article with the title, "Ukraine's ex-Bulgarian BTR-60 personnel carriers wouldn't last long on the front line. Bulgaria will hand over to Ukraine BTR-60 armored personnel carriers with such weak armor that even machine gun fire can penetrate them. The wheeled BTR-60 of the 1960s is an armored personnel carrier, mainly in name only. It is not to any significant degree," wrote reviewer David Exon. According to Exon, improvements to the BTR-60 did did not help to eliminate their main flaw, 9mm armor, which even a machine gun can penetrate. Well, this article is basically saying that Bulgaria is handing Ukraine junk. And the F-16s that are being handed over to Ukraine, that are going to be handed over in about a year's time, are old junk as well. And so why am I pointing all of this out? Well, because I think the military-industrial complex and the grifters, they're unloading whatever military equipment they can unload in the next year. And then they're going to make all of these NATO countries purchase new weapons, new vehicles, new fighter jets. And this is all just one big money grab. So keep this conflict going for another year. Let's make whatever money we can for the remaining year. That's what the military-industrial complex is saying. Let's make whatever money we can for the remaining year. Let's try to get this over the November 2024 U.S. presidential finish line as well, and that'll be that. That's what's happening here. So before I get to my clown world, just a quick update on the BRICS summit. I think we have now confirmation that there is going to be a BRICS expansion. Iran, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Egypt, and Argentina will be joining BRICS. Saudi Arabia, Iran, UAE, Egypt, and Argentina. A lot of oil-producing countries that are going to be entering BRICS. Goodbye, petrodollar. That's all I have to say there. And now let's do some clown worlds and wrap up this video. How am I doing on time? Always checking the time. You're right. I got about 5 minutes. So let's do some clown worlds. First of all, let's talk about the lawyers that are being arrested in the Trump indictments. Tim Pool put out a tweet with, actually he retweeted a tweet from Benny Johnson with the photos of the lawyers that are being arrested in the latest Trump indictment. And Benny Johnson says, you don't live in the same America. And he has the photos of the lawyers, Giuliani being one of them. And then Tim Pool, he added on to this tweet from Benny Johnson saying, lawyers, they are arresting lawyers. Exactly. The United States is crumbling because of these indictments. You do not live in the same America, according to Benny Johnson. And today, Trump is going to turn himself in to the Fulton County Police. And we'll see how this plays out over the next year. This is, if they continue on this path, this is the end of the Republic, if the Democrats and the deep state continue on this path. But that is it a clown world? It's kind of a clown world, but it's a horrific, sad clown world, because the people that are doing this to Trump and to lawyers, to Trump's lawyers, these people are clowns, but they're also sinister and evil and filled with hate and filled with the lust for power and afraid of Trump. And they're panicking at the poll numbers with Trump up 50 points. So I thought I would bring up this news, and I kind of lumped it into the clown world segment, but maybe it's not a clown world, maybe it is a clown world. Whatever it is, it's a sad day for the United States of America. And here are two clown worlds that are indeed clown worlds. From Glenn Deason, here's a tweet from Glenn Deason. With all the horrors in the world, it is nice. It is nice with some comedy every now and then. And he has a screenshot of a Reuters article from November 21, 2022, with the title, Francis Macron accuses Russia of predatory influence in Africa. It's Russia with predatory influence in Africa. And I guess this ties into Prigozhin in a way and Wagner's activities in Africa. I don't know, maybe Macron was behind the Prigozhin crash. Maybe. France is very upset with what is happening in Africa. They are very upset, and they're very upset at Wagner and Russia with the developments in Africa. Russia's presence in Africa, China's presence in Africa, and France's decline in Africa. So I thought that was an interesting screen grab from a tweet from Glenn Deason that he made yesterday. And a final clown world is a tweet from the 22nd of August from the Ukraine Defense Minister Olensky Reznikov, who may be appointed ambassador to the UK, but for now he is still defense minister, and he tweeted out, "The first F-16 has arrived in Ukraine from the Netherlands. The countdown to big falconry has begun. Welcome to Ukraine's capital, dear Kasia Olingren," the defense minister of, I believe, the Netherlands. Yeah, the defense minister of the Netherlands decided to pay the Olensky regime a visit, and she brought with her a model F-16. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. And this is the beginning of F-16s coming to Ukraine. F-16s that for the Netherlands are not fit for flight. These were going to be F-16s that they were going to send to the junkyard anyway, but now they're going to send them to the Olensky regime. And of course, you have to have the defense minister meet with the defense minister of Ukraine so that they can hold a model F-16 aircraft and take some photos and smile and kiss and hug, and this is all for PR reasons. This is all for media spin and PR. The goal right now is, I think they all understand. This is my final comment. They all understand that Ukraine has lost this conflict. So the goal right now, the way I see it, is twofold for the collective West. Olensky, he's just trying to figure out a way to survive. Reznikov, he's trying to figure out a way to become ambassador to the UK so he can take his billions, his millions, and his billions and retire in the UK. Everyone's going to try to figure out a way to survive this sinking ship. But for the collective West, for the EU officials, for the Netherlands, for Finland, for Lithuania, for Ursula von der Crazy, for Stoltenberg, for the European Union, how do we extend this war out so that the military-industrial complex can make the money it needs to make, and we'll unload all our old weapons, and then we'll buy a whole bunch of new weapons from Lockheed Martin and Raytheon. So how do we extend this out? And then from the Biden White House, how do we extend this out so that we can make a whole lot of money for our MIC masters, while at the same time taking this conflict to the November 2024 elections so that the Biden White House doesn't suffer a catastrophic Afghanistan-like debacle in Ukraine. That is it. Anyway, that's the video, everybody. We covered a lot of news today. I wasn't walking around today because it's plus 45 degrees and it's too hot to walk around. So that's the video. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, Telegram, and Rockfin. Go to the Duran shop. 10% off. Use the code GOODDAY. I'm wearing a Duran Bulgaria t-shirt. Take care.